I'd like to call the October 20th, 2015 Board of Zoning Appeals meeting to order. And I'd like you to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Start by introducing the board members from my right.
Oh, Kim Keller.
Jim Hilly.
Walt Recook.
Todd Chernick.
Christopher Bluer.
Sumit Shah.
The Board of Zoning Appeals is a quasi-legal board comprised of resident volunteers of the City of Milton. The board is charged with hearing requests for variances from the standards of the zoning ordinance and appeals of administrative determination. With regard to decisions on primary variances, the board's basis for decision is provided by these four considerations. Relief, if granted, would not offend the spirit or intent of the ordinance, and there are such extraordinary and exceptional situations or conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property that the literal or strict application of the ordinance would create an unnecessary hardship due to size, shape, or topography, or other extraordinary and exceptional situations or conditions not caused by the variance applicant, and relief, if granted, would not cause a substantial detriment to the public good in surrounding properties, and that the public safety, health, and welfare are secured, and that substantial justice is done. I'd like to request a motion to approve the meeting agenda as published.
I motion that the meeting agenda be approved as published.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Having heard a motion for approval of the meeting minutes as published with a second, please raise your right hand in favor.
Just to be clear, since you stated the meeting minutes, you did meet the agenda.
Yes, I did. It says meeting agenda right here. Yes, I meant meeting agenda.
This will be the agenda that minutes are on.
Yeah, so we're voting on the meeting agenda as published with a first and a second. Raise your right hand in favor. It passed unanimous. Now, looking for a motion to approve the meeting minutes from September.
I make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from September.
A second.
I'll second.
Having heard a motion to approve the September meeting minutes in a second, raise your right hand if you're in favor. Passed unanimous. We'll start with case V15-026, 440 Galloway Court, White Columns, Bobby Furquin.
V15-026. The site, 440 Galloway Court, is a single-family home located on approximately 1 acre in the White Column subdivision. It is zoned AG1 and is in the rural Milton overlay. The applicants, Steve and Bobby Furquin, constructed a wooden play set for their children in the back of their home, approximately 13 feet from Nix Road. This frontage requires a 60-foot minimum yard setback. A play set is considered an accessory structure and therefore is supposed to stay out of all minimum yards. The applicant stated that the play set was placed in this particular location because it is the only flat place that was suitable. Section 64-4141 states that accessory structures may be located in rear or side yards, but shall not be located within a minimum yard. Because the play set is located in the second front yard setback, a variance is required. The DRB reviewed the proposed case on October 6 and offered the following comments. The DRB recommends denial. If the BZA approves the variance, the DRB suggests the conditions of adding a 3 or 4 board horse type fence and or screening. Staff held a focus meeting on October 8th, 2015, in which the following comments were provided. Site plan review, arborist, and DOT stormwater had no comments. City architect stated the following: the setback and rule view shed should be respected, the play set should be removed. The standards for consideration were read earlier, and the applicant responds as follows. After much consideration, the location was chosen to install the play structure because it is the only level site on the property. The only permitted location is in the rear yard, which is mostly sloped and or heavily vegetated. Therefore, this location was selected. At the time of purchase and installation, we had recently relocated from California to Milton, Georgia, and were unaware of the city and or the HOA requirements for structures of this type. Thus, the play structure was located approximately 16 feet from the rear property line, which abuts Nix Road, and within the setback. However, it is not unsightly and is of little or no consequence to any reasonable individual. The purpose of the zoning ordinance includes the staff response, excuse me. The purpose of the zoning ordinance includes the regulation of the location of structures. The ordinance clearly states that accessory structures are not allowed in minimum yards. More than one Nix Road property owner have objected to the location of the structure. A child running out into the road to chase a ball or a pet could cause an accident, as well as endangering the child. For reasons such as these, placing an accessory structure so close to the road without fencing could be considered a detriment to the public good and safety. Should the board choose to approve the application, staff recommends the following conditions. The applicant should put up a 3 or 4 board horse-style fence with attached wire. The applicant shall plant evergreens to screen the play set from the view of the adjacent property. The planting plan should be approved by the city arborist. Staff recommendation. Staff recommends denial of this request. This concludes the staff presentation.
Are there any questions for staff?
Yes. I have a host of questions.
Yes, sir.
Angela, how many driveways do they have?
1.
And in the first synopsis, you talked, and forgive me, I'm just going back to make sure I quote it correctly. In section 64-414, it states that in the rear side setback yard, but shall not be located within a minimum yard. What's the definition of a minimum yard?
The minimum yard is the setback area where no structures are allowed. There's a front, side, and rear.
So if this was a quote unquote backyard, and I know that's not what we're calling it, but if this was a backyard, what would that be?
So there's a 60-foot setback between Nix Road and the house.
Right. But if it was a traditional backyard, so that if
What would the setback be? It
Yes,
would be
ma'am.
50.
50, 50?
50.
50, okay, great. And you had also indicated that there were a number of concerns from some neighbors on Nix Road about the play structure?
I've had 2 neighbors express concern about it.
Do we have anything in writing, or were they just phone calls?
I've received a couple of emails, and one of the neighbors came to the design review board meeting.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Recook?
Angela, you made some reference to an application put up a fence if as a condition. Where would that fence be?
Where would I suggest that it be placed?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, it has to be placed 3 feet back from Nix Road. but I
Okay,
would-
so you're making a reference to Nix Road.
yeah.
And secondly, if it was screening, where the screening would you be concerned with the most?
Since the screening would primarily be for the neighbors, they'd have to work with the city architect to kind of, I would suggest kind of an angle along the sides, that back side to keep it out of the sight of view of the adjacent property owners.
So that again would be along Nix Road and And I guess I also.
Well, not even so much along Nick's Road, but along the sides, the
Right.
side corners.
I know there's.
In
a
white
home-
columns.
In white columns.
Yeah, it's to screen lots 89 and
Okay.
86, maybe 87.
Sure. Okay, and the side yard setback, what would that be? I know we talked about 50 and 60 for the rear. What would the side setback be, and what is it now? I know it looks like it's not very close to the side yard, so I didn't think that it's violating anything on the side yard.
Side yard setback is 25 feet.
So it looks like on the side yard, they don't have a problem with that. It's just purely on the backyard that they have a problem, just looking at the plan again.
Right, they are out of the side yard setback.
So the only issue they've got is with the rear yard.
Right.
And there's no dimension, we don't know how close it is to the rear yard.
There's a blow up on page 8. And according to that, it is 13 feet from the property line.
Next page.
I'm
Kim?
sorry.
I have a question. If you could just, and I'm sorry because I know I'm kind of new. Why is that area considered a minimum yard?
Well, by definition, it's the area that no structures are allowed in.
But how, as a property owner, do you know what part of your yard is considered that?
It's shown on the plat. Every lot has a setback that no structures are allowed in, and anytime you build something, you're supposed to,
So the minimum yard is the setback space?
yes.
Okay, that makes it clear for me. Sorry, I was trying to understand. Okay.
Any other questions for staff before I call upon the applicant? Okay, at this time, I'd ask the applicant to come and present.
I'm actually not the applicant, I'm one of the neighbors against the,
We will take public comment following the applicant.
okay. He's not here. He's not here.
No applicant.
Gonna read the name one more time, just to call.
Yep.
Request the applicant for case V15-026, Bobby Furkwan, to present.
Push it to the.
Counselor?
Hearing no response, your bylaws state that should the applicant or agent for a particular application not be present, the time the application is heard, application is moved to the end of the agenda, and then once we get to that point, you can make a decision on what you want to do with it. So I think if you'll go ahead and make a motion to move it to the end of the agenda, we'll take it up at that point in time.
Is it something where we could maybe ask Angela to try to contact them by phone?
That's probably, yeah, that's probably a good idea. Is that possible, Angela?
Certainly can.
I mean,
Have you heard from them? Did you know, did they say anything like they weren't going to come?
I emailed them, well, I confirmed a week or so ago, before the last meeting, that they would be here.
Because, do I understand they had a DRB meeting last week?
Well, on the 6th.
Okay, so 2 weeks ago. Okay, well, I'll make a motion to move V15-026 to follow case V15-029. Do I hear a second?
2-8.
Well, 2-9's fine. We got to take a motion.
Oh, okay.
Hearing a second from Sumit. Having heard a first and a second to move this V15-026 to follow V15-029. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Passed unanimous. Okay, so then we'll move on to case V15-028, 15300 White Columns Drive. Applicant is Brent Warren. Would staff please present?
Yes, sir. The side site, 15300 White Columns Drive, is a single-family home located on approximately 1.25 acres in the White Columns subdivision. It is zoned AG1 and is in the rural Milton overlay. The applicant, Michael Cochran, has contracted with Brent and Laura Warren, the property owners, to build a swimming pool and deck in the rear of their house. When this lot was originally platted, the county only required a 25-foot stream buffer. This has since been changed to include a 50-foot stream buffer and 75-foot impervious setback. The new stream buffers now cover more than half of the lot. Section 20-426, 1 and 2 state that an undisturbed natural vegetative buffer shall be maintained for 50 feet, and an additional setback shall be maintained for 25 feet, in which all impervious cover shall be prohibited. Since the proposed pool encroaches into the 50-foot stream buffer, as well as the 75-foot impervious setback, a two-part variance is required. On October 6, 2015, the DRB offered the following comments. Eliminate the paved area in the 50-foot buffer area. Pervious pavers can be used. The staff held its focus meeting October 8, 2015, at which time the following comments were provided. Site plan review, DOT stormwater had no comments. The city architect stated, can part of the deck be constructed of pervious materials? And also, interestingly, I have some larger site plans that I'll hand out. And the city arborist noticed that on the site plan, he doesn't believe that the buffer was shown correctly, that it should actually, that it's not drawn from rested vegetation, but rather from the center line. So he just stated that the board should keep that in mind, and that the site plan would have to be revised before we issue the building permit. The standards for consideration for a stream buffer are a little different, so I'll read them now. The approval of a variance is based on the following considerations: the size, shape, topography, slope, soils, vegetation, and other physical characteristics of the property, the locations of all streams on the property, including along property boundaries, the location, extent of the proposed buffer or setback intrusion, whether alternative designs are possible which require less intrusion or no intrusion, the long-term and construction water quality impacts of the proposed variance, and whether issuance of the variance is at least as protective of natural resources and the environment. The applicant's response: the variance would not offend the spirit or intent of the ordinance because the location of the proposed swimming pool and the existing fence would in no way affect any of the neighboring properties, nor would it harm the view or the usable area of any neighboring property. When the home was originally built, there was a 25-foot buffer, which has since been changed to a 50-foot buffer and additional 25-foot impervious setback. Due to the placement of the septic system, the proposed pool has been placed as far to the right as possible from the buffer and cannot be moved over any further. Relief, if granted, would not cause a substantial detriment to the public good and surrounding properties, as this requested variance is the minimum necessary to accomplish the proposed development. There is no backwashing of the pool. The proposed decking is to be pervious paver decking, which allows any water to dissipate into the ground. We are also capturing water from all downspouts and storing it in a gravel pit on the property. The staff response: the size of the lot, the location of the septic system, and stream buffers limit the placement of the swimming pool. The stream buffers now cover more than half of the lot, and the septic tank is located in the only area available in the rear yard that is not covered by the current stream buffers. The proposed pool is placed directly behind the house, thereby minimizing any visual impact on the adjacent properties. The applicant is proposing several mitigation procedures, including pervious pavers and an absorption pit, which would limit the impact of the buffer. Recommended conditions: should the board choose to approve the application, staff recommends the following conditions. Pervious pavers shall be used in the 50-foot stream buffer and the 75-foot impervious setback areas. And the site plan should be corrected to show the buffer is drawn from point of rested vegetation. Staff recommends approval with conditions of this request. This concludes the staff presentation.
Are there any questions for staff?
I want to just make a comment. I do live in White Columns. I do not know these residents, so I just want to make sure that that's understood, nor do I know the other applicants, so.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions for staff?
Oh, sure.
Before I call the applicant, I'm going to take a minute so we can all review the site plans.
Yeah, I would like to. Angela, one question if I may. I know you said when the house was originally platted, the setback was 25 feet, and then we changed it to 50 feet. What period of time was the plat done versus the house being constructed?
I looked that up, but I do not remember off the top of my head.
Okay.
But I'm pretty sure the applicant can tell.
Yeah, no, I can ask the applicant. I was just curious if we knew. Thank you, ma'am.
I think it was in 1999.
Okay.
Any questions for staff? So I do have one question for staff. The site plan that we're looking at reflects the buffers based on center line of stream and not rested vegetation, which means there would be further intrusion than what's noted on here, correct?
Yeah, it's probably only 5 or 6 more feet, but yeah, there would be a little more intrusion, correct?
Okay. At this point, I'd ask the applicant to come present B15-028.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Michael Cochran. My address is 2745 Antioch Road, Cumming, Georgia, 30040. I represent Atlanta Pools and also the Warrens that are here tonight behind me. I've chosen to speak on their behalf to represent them and walk them through this process.
Have you turned in a public comment card, the yellow card?
Yes, sir, I have.
Perfect, thank you.
Back in 2001, the house was started by Milton Jones. The Warrens moved up from the Atlanta area out to more space and farm country. They purchased the house with a few minor choices left to be selected on the house to be completed. At the time when they viewed a survey from the builder expressed to them that the yard was graded, built, pool fence barrier was installed for a fence to be behind it at some point in time. Time has passed. The Warrens now have decided to move forward with the swimming pool. We did have a site plan, a new site plan drawn up here recently, and to their discoveries, the 50-foot and the 75 setback actually runs through their house. The 75 does, which limits the pool area. When they came to me and we talked about it, we saw the circumstances as we could apply for a variance. That's why we're here tonight. We also have HOA approval. We've already gone through that process. We've reached their approval. Paul Moore is one of their neighbors. That's one of their neighbors that we have approval from, of 5 surrounding neighbors that have sent approval letters that we turned into staff in the previous meeting. When you're looking at the elevations, I know I've turned in a survey that has a lot of lines on it. We also tried to include the topo, which is in red. Pool water itself will be actually 10 feet above the elevation of the creek. So in case the creek ever did have a huge flood or anything like that, there's plenty of elevation there that would never affect the pool area. One thing we're also planning on doing is capturing all the gutter downspouts. They are not piped away as we speak, so we plan on capturing that water and maintaining it on the property with a gravel pit that I've also labeled. And if you're at the street, the back left corner below the septic, basement septic, we're going to maintain that water on the property to help with the impact of the project. We've tried to be a minimum as invasive as we can. We're actually holding the pool water itself completely out of the 50. The only thing that's going to cross into the 50 is some pervious pavers and some boulder steps. With the elevation of the yard, water being 10 foot above the creek, there's obviously a slight or an elevation that we have to offset with either walls or what we've done is we've made the pool wall the actual retaining wall. So that's going to be a walk-up reverse bar area below the pool. So that when you walk below the pool, the water will be raised up 42 inches to offset the elevation of the yard. I also presented pictures to staff. I don't know if you guys did receive those in your packets. If not, I have some on hand as well. So we've tried to be as minimum invasive as we can. Obviously, the septic plays a big role in the placement of the pool. Also, the HOA likes the pool to be, in lines with sidelines of the house. We've met that. So we've tried to impact as minimum as we can. No trees in the areas will be affected. None will be removed. That should wrap it up. If you guys have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
I have one question. It's pertaining to the staff's recommendation,
Right.
condition of pervious pavers in the 50-foot and 75-foot setbacks. Is that already in your plan?
We're going back and forth with the client. We did like the recommendations of 50-foot pavers down below, but in the 75, we were looking for a little bit more permanent, maybe like an aggregate decking, but we're open to suggestions. But the 50-foot impervious pavers would be without a problem at all. That's minimum walking area down there, just basically to get down to the chairs below. But up top, they were wanting something a little bit more permanent for chairs and tables and stuff like that.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Have you considered porous concrete? There's also that type of product. I know that's a little bit something that's maybe you're not as familiar with, but it is something that is used, and it is much more durable than the pavers, and I'm not sure from a cost standpoint, it may be a little bit less expensive than the pavers, but the workability and having somebody who can work it and do it correctly, it may be a little bit more complicated to find somebody. But
it would be definitely something I'd be interested to look in if that's an avenue we have to explore. Haven't seen any cost on it or any long-term effects that it has, with time, how it lasts. But I know it's a relatively new product.
It's not really new. It's something that's been out for over 10 years. The only thing you have to do as an owner, you do have to pressure wash it on occasion to clean out the pores, and that applies also to your porous pavers. To make it porous, it needs to be cleaned on occasion. But I would sure if they live in white columns, you get the notes like I do. Have you pressure washed your front driveways, and have you pressure washed this? So I'm sure maybe you have to just apply it to your backyard. But it's something that you do have to do. And the second thing is it does have the rock and gravel down below it to keep it so that it does percolate through. But it is something that's done. I can show you a multitude of locations throughout the metro area where it's done. In fact, DeKalb County, not far, DeKalb County's library, right by I'm trying to remember the Health and Human Services building where the veterans hospitals near the Emory area has it. It's been there for over 10 years. And in front of that library, it has the porous concrete. And that whole parking deck is like that.
I have a question. You're the installer?
I'm the pool builder, yes, sir.
Okay. I have a question regarding the longer-term implications of having a pervious surface on a pool deck to the integrity of the pool itself. As far as, I'm playing devil's advocate here, right? If we request a pervious surface as a pool deck, Does that create any erosion issues around the base of the pool? Any perhaps freeze-thaw issues and the cracking of the pool integrity? Do you have experience in doing any pervious pool decks?
Yes, there is some long-term effects. We do a 7 to 8 inch gravel base underneath those. So obviously with massive amounts of rain, there can be settling areas. And what typically happens is we just have to come lift them up and re-level them with more crush and run or M10 underneath them. So in heavy water areas where we swell the deck for the majority of the water to go to the drains, then you'll see some settling. But typically, with age, we just have to pick them up and level them back out, and that's it.
But is there any long-term, I think if I can reinterpret your question,
Okay.
Is there any risk, and there are always exceptions, and I get 1,000-year floods and all that.
Right.
In general, though, with the amount of rainfall that we receive here in the metro Atlanta area, with that type of a deck, will it damage the pool integrity as much as a traditional deck would not?
No, sir, it would not.
Okay.
The pool shells we build nowadays, we do a shotcrete material, 12 inches thick, 8-inch floor. You literally could have no dirt around the pool, and the pool shell would obtain the water inside of it.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Let me go back, if I may.
Yes, sir.
Underneath that pool and that stone, you can have a drain field also underneath there. So if you do have a drain field put around that stone, once it percolates through, that's exactly what they've done in this porous concrete as well as in the porous pavers. That allows you and a point to allow the water to get back out and actually drain into some drain boxes. Now, you also, I believe, said you're having certain gravel pits that are going to be dug near the pool for water to be going into the ground. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. What we've the house currently doesn't. The gutter downspouts actually pipe to just the lowest point of the yard, which all builders do, to try to protect the neighbor. But it goes to the rear of the property, which is towards the creek. We plan to improve the water situation by grabbing all the gutter downspouts and putting them in a gravel pit. I've contacted an engineer and how many gutter downspouts are on the house, and he's calculated a 5 by 5 by 10.
Right.
And then there will obviously be an overflow coming out the top with a huge rain, that there would be an area to relieve that water
That's
runoff.
right. So what I'm saying is that same pipe system that you would have underneath that deck would go into that same gravel pit that you're putting in those locations. That's where that would also feed into.
Yes, sir.
Lastly, in a big storm, those things also are just like your ground. Certain amount of rain, it's not going to percolate. It only takes a certain amount, and it won't percolate anymore. So
Yes, sir. That is correct.
It'll run off like everything else. So
Yes, sir. That's why we have that backup overflow valve on it. Yes, sir.
that's right. Okay. And where's your chlorine overflow line for the pool? What kind of pool is this? Is this a saltwater pool, or is this a regular chlorine pool?
It is going to be a salt pool.
Okay.
It is going to have an overflow on it like all of them do, so you're not out trying to siphon on a garden hose. It will go also in the gravel pit.
Okay.
It is a cartridge filter, not a sand filter, so there will not be any backwashing. So only water that's going to actually go out the overflow in the gravel pit is just the rain overflow.
Okay, because this stream does feed to a lake downstream. I don't know if you're aware of where it feeds, but there's a lake downstream that feeds into this little bridge that you cross downstream. So, yeah, I well know it's really that one that it feeds to. So I just want to caution you that you don't want to kill things downstream. So salt does a great job of killing things.
Yes, sir, it does, including grass.
That's right. So I just like to be cautious about how things are handled in your water overflow.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, at this point, do you have any last-minute comments? We'll have public comment, and then you'll have a chance to rebut if necessary.
That would be fine.
Okay. So at this point, I'll open the floor for public comment, if there is any. Hearing and seeing none, as the applicant, you have a chance to make any closing comments if you'd like.
Again, my client's here tonight. We're wanting to build a pool in beautiful Milton, feed families, and also build a beautiful pool for the Warrens to enjoy with their friends and family as well. We've tried to take every angle of not affecting the neighbors, the golf course, and the creek as possible. The Warrens are also accepting more responsibility costs to make these things possible. Gravel pit, doing pavers down below, capturing all the water. So we're trying to do minimum impact on the creek as possible. So if you guys would grant the variance, we'd be greatly appreciated. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, so the public hearing is closed, and I'll open the floor to a motion. Mr. Recook?
I'd like to make a motion for approval of the variance of V15-028. This is to allow a swimming pool and deck to encroach into the 50-foot stream buffer. And this is also to allow a 50-foot swimming pool and deck to encroach into the 50-foot impervious setback. This is with conditions that the pervious pavers or pervious concrete shall be used in the 50-foot stream buffer and 75-foot impervious setback area. And it will be based on the plan submitted, provided it is revised to reflect the rested vegetation dimensions being revised on the plan submitted on, I'm trying to look for a date here, by Accurate Surveying and Planning.
Looks like September 3 to me.
Looks like September 3, 2015. And
That's fine.
That's all.
So we have a motion. Do I hear a second?
I think I just want to make a clarification. Walt, did you mean, I think you said 50-foot stream buffer and 50-foot impervious setback, but 75?
75 foot, yes, sir, I'm sorry. 75. And again, the plan has to be reflect the revised site plan to reflect the rested vegetation. Both those dimensions have to be revised. The 50-foot stream buffer and the 75-foot impervious setback. Those are all both dimensions from the rested vegetation from the stream.
Do I hear a second?
I second.
So open the floor for discussion.
So if I may, Mr. Chairman, I certainly agree with the pervious pavers or concrete, I mean, regardless, into the 50-foot stream buffer. The hesitancy I have is on the 75 portion of it. I respect the comment that the gentleman made, more of a secure footing for what's there. They do have a unique situation with how their house is currently platted. I mean, as we can see in the map, their house is in the 75-foot setback. I mean, there does come to some degree of enjoyment that you want to have and not put them really just so far out. So that's the only part, Walt, of your motion that I would
I did have a similar reservation.
hesitate on.
So I'm trying to understand what you're trying to say.
Yeah, Kim, what basically I'm saying is that I agree with Walt on 90% of what he said, except the 75-foot.
And what would you want it to say?
So the condition as it stands now is pervious pavers or pervious concrete in the 50-foot stream buffer and 75-foot impervious setback.
I would get rid of those last 5 words.
Strike the 75%
Oh, okay.
impervious setback.
Right, and give them the freedom and flexibility to do
Yeah.
what's appropriate, given their
Allow them a
circumstances.
poured concrete pullback, which would be more typical.
Right.
Right.
Or more durable.
More durable, I mean, if they're in impervious
Yeah, you have
pavers.
other problems.
And they're moving around,
Yeah,
it's just uncomfortable. I don't know if there's any other way to put it.
yeah.
Or has the potential to be uncomfortable, I guess I should say.
I guess my only point would be, if I show you impervious concrete, you wouldn't notice the difference.
And that,
Until the pocketbook.
I guess, maybe.
yeah.
So,
And
I
that-
think you're
and
just
that-
trying to give them the
I
flexibility
am
to
trying to give them the
choose what
flexibility.
is- Yeah.
Yeah.
They can choose to do that, we're just not
Absolutely.
imposing it.
And,
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
Again, I don't care. It doesn't really matter that much to me.
All right, so
Would you
can
be
we-
willing to, should we offer up a friendly amendment?
That's fine with me.
So, Mr. Reed-Cook, I'd like to make an amendment, if I may, sir, to
Just to strike that.
to modify your motion and strike the last 5 words. And so the condition would be pervious pavers that shall be used in the 50-foot stream buffer, period. And eliminate or redact, and 75 feet impervious setback areas.
So an amendment to modify the motion to remove condition for 75-foot impervious.
Setback area.
And you have the rest of vegetation.
Well, we got that, yeah.
Yeah,
This is just the
that
amendment.
has to be, I agree with that portion of it, that
Yeah.
the map should reflect
Well-
what is accurate.
So let me make sure I've captured your
Yes, sir.
amendment to modify the motion to remove the condition for 75-foot impervious setback. Wording,
The wording is simply to eliminate the last 5 words in walls.
to eliminate.
That's- Yeah, so the condition to install pervious pavers and/or concrete, I think is how you phrased it, shall be used in the 50-foot stream buffer, period.
Period. Okay. So that's, looking for a second?
Second.
After all that, I was
Yeah,
like,
well, so having heard a motion and a second, and I'll read the amendment again, so prior to taking a vote, the amendment would be to modify Walt's original motion to eliminate the last 5 words, which include the condition for 75-foot impervious setback. All those in favor, raise your right hand. That amendment passed unanimously. Is there any further discussion regarding the original motion? All right, I'll read the original motion and then take a vote. This is for application V15-028 to allow a swimming pool and deck to encroach into the 50-foot stream buffer, to allow a swimming pool and deck to encroach into the 75-foot impervious setback, with the following 2 conditions. Pervious pavers or pervious concrete shall be used in the 50-foot stream buffer. Plan submitted by Accurate Survey dated 9/23/15 shall be revised to reflect the buffers from rested vegetation.
9/3, September 3rd.
My bad, correction. Plan submitted by Accurate Survey dated 9/3/15 to be revised to reflect the buffers from rested vegetation. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Passed unanimous. Congratulations, enjoy your pool.
Enjoy. Thanks for being a part of Milton.
We'll now move on to case V15-029, 735 Ebenezer Road. Jane Meredith is the applicant.
Mr. Chair, staff would like to request that this case be deferred until the November meeting. I received a call from the adjacent property owner yesterday stating that there is a well close to the property line, and Fulton County requires that all wells be 100 feet from any animal enclosure, and right now this proposal is not meeting that requirement. Therefore, that this variance cannot be approved as it currently stands, so
Okay.
we're working through that.
So do I have
I'll make a motion to defer till our next meeting, V15-029.
is there a second?
That's second.
So having heard a motion and a second to defer until the next meeting, case V15-029, all those in favor, raise your right hand. Passed unanimous. That now brings us back to case V15-026. Is the applicant Bobby Furkerwan in attendance?
I did reach him on the phone. I guess he was discouraged after the design review board meeting, and he thought that was it, to put it. So his ask that the case be deferred for another month is in that he will be here. He stated that he will be here at the November meeting.
Is this
Okay,
the
so-
second deferral?
No, it's first.
First?
It's the
First.
second.
It is?
What is the second?
Oh, this is a second. Okay, my bad.
So I always have a question on this, Counselor. We obviously have some folks here from the public that would like to speak. Am I correct that we can take their testimony today if we choose to do so? And we could consider that next month if we defer this?
No, you're the option of denying or postponing
So we
your
cannot hear?
bylaws.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
Why was this the second deferral? What happened with the first?
The first time he was not present for the September design review board meeting.
So we had to remove it from our agenda because of that.
And then he came to the October design review board meeting, and they recommended denial.
So that the playset continues to be there.
Playset continues to be there.
Is there some sort of statute of limitations that allow him to,
Well,
hey,
Well-
we can just deny it, I guess.
Well, as
outright.
Counselor said, we can either deny, accept, or defer. That's our purview.
So I say we give him one more chance. If he doesn't show up the third time, then we just deny it.
We've been here 3 times.
I'm sorry,
The
this
house
is,
for sale. They're not even living there anymore. They live in
there's not a
Florida.
time to take public comment on this right now.
Yeah, good point. But I mean, if you guys see my point, I mean, it's like,
Go ahead.
I feel if you want a variance, you need to show up to the hearing. And I don't like to be hardline, but, you know, it's all our time, it's everybody's time here. And if you want, if you want this, you've got to do what it takes to try to get what you want, not just not show up. I don't know. I mean, if there's a good excuse, car accident, somebody's sick.
Without knowing obviously the entire situation, this process can be confusing. Just the various steps that somebody has to go through to get through a variance with design review board, et cetera. Not defending, but I
the staff,
do
is
understand.
there, Angela, is the house occupied or unoccupied, or?
I'm not sure.
If you look on realty.com,
I mean, we really need to keep this
Okay, all right, all
Ma'am,
right.
I'm sorry.
Limited.
either we're going forward or we're
Denying.
either voting, motion to deny or motion
So
to
I'd like to make a
postpone.
motion to defer V15-026 to our next meeting.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Again, I think, just like we heard before, I think it is confusing. I think in some cases, people don't always understand it. I'm like you, I'm very frustrated. I'd rather take positions on certain things, but to not have an applicant here, I think also denies them a right. I agree with you. I agree that there's a disproportionate feeling on both sides that could be made, but unfortunately,
Okay.
being justice, we have to hear
That's
things.
commentary. Any other discussion? The only point I would offer is staff did contact the applicant, and they felt that the design review board kind of made the decision, meaning that they didn't understand the full process, that we are actually the final decision makers. So I'll give him that benefit of the doubt, is my view on it. Any other discussion?
Nope, let's
Okay,
vote.
the motion is to defer V15-026 until our next Board of Zoning meeting. All those in favor, raise your right hand. The motion passed unanimous. Angela, are there any consideration of appeals?
Yes, sir.
Any old business?
I have none other than I did send out the bylaws. I hope that helped a little, Kim.
Oh, last month?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. I thought recent, okay.
I think we wanted, I don't know when we wanted to start discussing training. Just who knows when we're going to get another.
Bill, that was going to be my question, is do we have any indication from our open candidate? Okay. It was my hope that we would, given the time of season, that we would have an applicant or a candidate fill this, Dr. Willis's spot here in the next month or two at the latest, and therefore, and then use that time to get us all together. And so hopefully that'll still be the case.
We'll ask again.
Now, you sent out that video for us to all watch as well, right?
And that was the last training we did, yes.
So I
Thank you
guess,
for reminding me.
no, we get extra credit for that, right?
You do.
You will get double pay.
Stipend.
So you marked it down so we
Did,
could,
yes.
okay. And everybody else got through it too?
Everybody
All
watched
3
it.
hours?
I'm sure you all watched it.
Came to the,
Yes, ma'am.
So
Until-
came
we-
to the training last year, right? Some of us came to the training.
Did you come to it last year? I had soccer.
Well, on that note, if there is specific topics that we would like to get refreshed on,
Sure.
it probably would be wise to get those to Angela. So if there's some material that can be pulled together for a training session, it's appropriate and not just broad. Any other old business?
No, sir.
If they ever do another one of those, you've got to put a mic on that guy. That recording was absolutely horrible.
Did he talk a lot? Is there any new business?
I'm not sure whether this is new business or not, but we might want to consider a second meeting in December at an establishment around the corner so we can advertise that publicly.
Sounds like I might need to go.
I've already discussed that with staff, and we will advertise having a follow-up public meeting
Perfect.
once we get a better understanding
Just living by the law.
of our new board member. Any other new business?
I had one quick question. Remind me again where the minutes are posted.
Where?
Yeah.
I think under the city clerk, and there's a.
Is it on a
It's on the website.
On the city
There's that.
website,
Yeah.
under the city
Okay.
clerk, and then
Okay.
you,
Okay.
Can they send it out to us just so we don't have to go there?
the minutes,
Yeah,
I send them to you,
that's what I thought. You don't have to go
I
there.
received them.
Okay.
but I can. yeah.
Counselor,
sure everyone did.
we need to wrap up. Counselor has a child to pick up.
Yeah.
Need a motion to adjourn then.
I'll make a motion to adjourn our wonderful October